Okay, so welcome to Belfast Whale, first
Hey,
episode. Today I have Coach Kearns, Coach Kevin Kearns, from Boston, Massachusetts. Kevin, you're, as people don't know, you're a strength and conditioning coach for some of the top UFC fighters like Kenny Florian. You've also got a popular uh, website, Burn of Cairns. You've also starting an online certification course which launches next week. So
it's launching on
thanks
the 20th.
as well. Sorry,
It's launching on the 20th.
launching the 20th, so 20th of February. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks
Um,
for having me.
yeah. So just for anyone who what do you call it, who doesn't know you maybe, how did you? If you tell us a bit about your wee overview of your background, but how did you get involved in the world of mixed martial arts and UFC, and came around to train some of the top fighters?
Well, it's funny, Jonathan. You know that old saying, being in the right place at the right time.
Mhm.
So I was training at Mark Delagrati's Sityodtong under Mark Delagrati in Thai boxing, and he was training a lot of the top fighters. I started experimenting with some of the amateurs, showing them some of the functional training stuff, and it caught on. And then one thing led to another, and what ended up happening is I was a sponsor for Kenny Florian first, so I got a patch on the shorts, you
Okay.
know, for X amount of dollars. And what ended up happening is Kenny always had a back problem for years, and right before the Sean Shirk fight, about 3 weeks before the fight, his back went out,
Okay.
and his current strength coach was back in Vermont with his girlfriend, and his current strength coach didn't know the flexibility techniques that I know. So his marketing manager was also my marketing manager, kind of put us two together. So I went over, stretched him out, and I said, I'll tell you what, I said, I'll come out to Vegas for the fight on my own nickel to keep you flexible, you know, for the fight.
Yeah.
And he went, sounds good to me. And he went for it. So literally that's what I did. I would I get up early. Those guys don't get up until like 11. I get up at like, I'm up, you know, if I'm up at 6, it's late. That's how I roll. So, I wouldn't, and I was at probably 2 miles away, So when I looked on the map, when I looked on the map, when I was getting my hotel room, I'm like, oh, it's only a couple blocks. Yeah, a couple blocks in Vegas is a couple miles. So I literally would have to walk, to to their hotel when they woke up. But anyway, what ended up happening is, you know, Kenny fought his ass off, fought the whole 5 rounds, lost the fight, and then he decided when he came back he needed to make a change, and that change was me. That was the big change. So I had to rebuild him kind of from the ground up. So, he lost that big fight, and his next fight was against Dokonami Mishima, the number 2 guy in Pride. And I think at least 4 or 5 months went by. I literally rebuilt him from the ground up. Like, he had an ankle problem, his back, and my system that I came up with, that I teach a certification on, that can be used not only for MMA, can be used for other sports. We've adapted it to plenty of other sports. Um, we basically, Kenny was the perfect lab rat. I tested it on him, and it worked. It
Yeah.
just made, from an exercise physiology point of view, from what I know from college, it made sense, and from the
Yeah.
functional training world, it made sense. A lot of these guys, the big problem these guys had was they would get serious 6 weeks before a fight, so they would screw off before that. They
Okay.
they train hard, fight, win, and then screw off, and then
Right.
get serious 6 weeks before a fight. So if you go back in some of the interviews with Kenny, you'll hear Kenny saying in some of the interviews, there is no off season. That was me drilling it into his head, because one day we were probably 6 weeks into it, maybe 8 weeks into it. And his marketing manager called me and says, Kenny's going to cancel on you. I'm like, what's going on? His back's bothering him. He's like, if you don't nip this in the bud now, it's gonna. He pulled out of there was a first Sam Stout fight that he pulled out of because he was getting a T-shirt out of the drawer and threw his back out.
Right.
So Kenny, sure enough, Kenny called me, and I'm like, yeah, what's going on? He's like, yeah, my back's kind of bothering me. I don't know what you want me to do. It's like, he wouldn't train till like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm like, and I kind of drew a line in the sand. I basically said to him, I said, I want you to get your ass over my house and train. I said, what are you going to do? Play Nintendo DS all day? He came over my house, didn't say hi to my kids, didn't say hi to anybody, comes downstairs with this look on his face. And I looked at him and I go, look, man, we're changing the program anyway. I said, we can work around this. And sure enough, we changed it. We went into explosive power. We worked around it. His back didn't bother him, and it fixed the problem.
Excellent. Yeah.
So, and then what ended up happening is it caught on. People started, when Kenny walked into that fight against Dokonami, Mike Goldberg couldn't stop talking about and Joe Rogan couldn't stop talking about how different he looked. I mean, the big joke that we had was, if they say he's on steroids, then we've won.
Yeah.
So that was the big joke. If they think he's on steroids, that means we're doing all right. So that happened, and then what ended up happening next is then Marcus Davis wanted to train with me, then George Georgel wanted to train with me, then Alice Keller-Rexis wanted to train with me, Stephen Bonner, Nate Quarry came in for a week, and people just started coming in.
Yeah, so it started to snowball. People started seeing the results Kenny was getting. Thought, I want to get on that.
Kenny was the perfect case.
Yeah.
He was the perfect case. He was the, the big joke with Dana was he was the fighter that doesn't look like the fighter, right? And then now he looks like the fighter.
Yeah.
So, that was the big joke. So it just started snowballing.
And then when you're working with obviously elite fighters or even athletes, how would you usually approach the training with them? If somebody phoned you up today and said, Kevin, I've got a fight in 6 months' time, or I'm going to compete in athletics in 6 months' time, how would you normally approach that type of training?
Well, take that that's a macro cycle, right? So it's 6 months, it's macro cycle. So you take that and you say, okay, what's the events? You break it down, right? So if it's an MMA fight in 6 months, you're talking the first 2 months are going to be all strength hypertrophy, all base phase, build the house, build the basement. That was one of my philosophies, is you got to have a strong basement. You can spend $100,000 on your roof, but if you spend $10,000 in your basement, you're done.
Yeah.
You're totally done. We ran into a problem when Kenny was fighting Joe Lozon. He hadn't had any issues at all with his back, and then we got one of those. What are they called? Where they take the it's like an elevation chamber where they.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like a kind of like a temperature control room, like is that?
Not temperature control. No, it was more elevation.
Oh, elevation. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Elevation. So I was great at getting equipment for nothing. So we got him one of those because we were fighting at 5,500 feet above sea level. We got him one of those. So he was, he was living in this condo, and he moved that himself. He moved something else himself. He was moving some heavy shit, and we were like 6 weeks out before the fight. So all of a sudden, I get a phone call. He's like, "Kev, my back, I can't stand up." I'm like, "What?" I had the flu. I'm like, "What?" He's like, I can't stand up. I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. He's like, "No." I go, "What did you do?" I said, "Well," he's like, "I picked up this, I picked up." I'm like, "What the hell are you doing?" Right? So the next day he went to see the neurologist, and the neurologist said, "You got 3 annular tears in your disc." And I'm like, he's done. He's toast. He's not fighting, because we had rebuilt him. A week later, he was training again. Slowly, but we were training again. Because he even mentioned at the end of the fight, he's like, at the end of the fight, he's like, "I wasn't even supposed to be here." I'm like, "Don't say that." Don't say it. So, if somebody comes across and says, my main work isn't athletes. My main work is just the general mom and dads, right? Soccer moms. But you can apply all this training to soccer moms and the CEOs. It's not a problem. Those guys pay the bills. I love having athletes. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the CEOs and the soccer moms pay the bills.
Well, there's I know obviously amongst the most common problems today, a lot of people do complain about lower back problems. So, as you say, you can transfer the skills or the methods from training professional athletes to the soccer moms or the CEOs or the dads.
Exactly. Well, and then our whole philosophy with one of our certification is everybody has a fighter within them, right? Yeah. If I tell people I'm like, "How'd you like to burn like 900 calories in like 45 minutes?" They're like, "How many?" I'm like, 900 calories. You do gas in the tank. So if we have a 6-month fight, if we have 6 months for a fight, those first 2 months are going to be all base phase. Building the foundation. The next 2 months are going to be explosive power. The next 2 months, which is leading up to the fight, is going to be gas in the tank. It's going to be sport specific. That's how it's going to work. And that would be for anything. I wouldn't care what the competition was. That's what it's going to be. And
then with fighters, and I suppose I might give some credit to the ordinary man on the street, especially if they're trying to lose weight for like a wedding or like a big event. But with fighters or athletes, they're obviously motivated to be the best, especially if like Kenny Florian, you're fighting at the UFC. It's quite a high level competition. What would be the kind of usual problems you'd kind of run into in the build up to getting them ready for a competition?
Injuries. We had a running model with Marcus Davis. If he wasn't injured, he wasn't going to win.
Okay.
He always got injured.
Right.
Anytime he won. The times he lost, he didn't get injured in camp. So, you have to understand those guys are training twice a day, 6 days a week, and getting close, and then they're cutting weight and they're getting close to competition, and they're taking a beating. Grappling, wrestling, kickboxing, Muay Thai, you name it, they're doing it all. They're taking a beating. So sooner or later, and then strength and conditioning, they got to do that too. So,
do you ever find that it's difficult to get some of the coaches on board with the program? Do you ever find that maybe if there's obviously the underlying injuries there, and you're trying to get the guy to follow a set routine to help build up that foundation you were mentioning? Did you ever come across where the coach was like, "Let's keep going"? Did you ever have that as an issue?
There's never been an issue. There's never been an issue like that.
Yeah.
That keep going, or everybody kind of stuck to their own thing, what they were doing. I think if you look at the BJ Penn versus Kenny Florian fight, that was completely, messed up.
Yeah.
I technically wasn't the strength coach in that fight.
Okay.
Technically,
Yeah.
That was basically what had happened is GSP beat BJ, right, in January that year, right?
Yeah.
Kenny wanted to train with GSP, no problem. Well, Kenny had trouble with his tonsils on and off for years, so he decided to get his tonsils out. In February, I think, of 2009, we were up in Toronto doing a seminar together. I'm doing one, he's doing the other at the same location. And it's been 4 weeks and he hasn't trained.
Okay.
And I'm like, when are you gonna start getting, I mean, we were out to dinner and he got a chocolate brownie sundae and him and I are fighting over it. And, he's like almost stabbing me with the fork, literally. And I said, when are you going to get serious? He's like, yeah. I said, we're fighting BJ Penn in 3 months, right? So he goes up and trains with GSP, and he's deconditioned, and John Chainberg wows him. And basically he says, when he comes back, he's like, oh, man, Kev, he says, John Chainberg, this, that, and the other thing. Will you work with them? I said, I'll work with anybody. Well, I don't care who anybody is, and I'm not going to speak ill on anybody, but I don't care who anybody is. I talked to him briefly the first day, and then we were supposed to circle the wagons about the program.
Yeah.
It took me 5 days to get him on the phone. I had 2 little babies at home.
Yeah.
He's not married, and it's like, give me a break. I finally get him on the phone, and he's like, yeah, that sounds good, this, that, and the other thing. The next day I walked in, I got the program that I had put together that John and I discussed. I walked in, and I said to Kenny, I said, all right. I said, we're all set, let's go. He's like, oh, no, I already got the program from John last night.
Yeah.
I got sidestepped.
Yeah. I know you mentioned about developing a program, and you kind of transfer over to like the soccer moms or the CEOs. How would you normally approach training for an individual, whether it be an athlete or just maybe a 40-year-old executive who's wanting to lose weight? How does that differ between the two?
How would I approach that?
Yeah, how does it differ? Does your training methods differ from an MMA athlete or athlete to just an average guy or soccer mom, basically?
Basically, the first thing they got to be able to do is move. If they can't move, you know what I mean? Movement first. Movement first. I'm not going to have anybody get on a bench press until they can do a push-up. It's pointless. Yeah. So, and again, we would start with a base phase. You got to build the bottom. Start with the, to me, first thing you got to start with is build the core, because you could be limb strong and core weak, and if you're core weak, you're done.
Yeah.
So you got to start with the core.
I suppose that basically modern living, modern lifestyles doesn't help in that way. Maybe spend long periods of time sitting. You're doing that drive to work, maybe an hour's drive to work, then you're sitting the game for 8 hours a day, and then going home watching TV. So that's obviously building up a lot of issues where you're obviously going to get weak. That'd be correct as well, wouldn't it?
I mean, think about nowadays in this country anyway. You can get your groceries delivered, right? Nobody wants to do anything anymore. No. So it's a major problem.
Going into the whole movement, you're also certified functional movement screen coach.
Yep.
And today, obviously, especially in the fitness industry, there's a bigger emphasis on movement-based training. We've touched on obviously the importance of movement for our health and well-being. Uh, how can someone, maybe who's watching this, how can someone incorporate more movement into their training or into their everyday living, basically lifestyle?
Go to a yoga class.
Yoga, okay.
Go to a yoga class. Go to a Pilates class. Go to something old school. You know, go to something totally old school. I got into yoga 10 years ago. I haven't looked back. And the first time I got into yoga, I remember the first few times I went, every time the heater went off, I thought I was going to throw up.
Right. Okay.
You know, because it's hot yoga.
So you do the hot yoga then, yeah?
Yeah. And you're talking something that's 50,000 years old.
Right.
So if it's 50,000 years old, it's been around that long, it's going to be working.
And what difference when you once you start incorporating yoga into your routine, how if we can ask how big a difference did it make to how you felt, how you move?
Completely. It's a 180.
180. Okay.
Yeah, your flexibility increases, your peace of mind. You know, you call it yoga brain. You walk out of yoga class, you can get hit by a bus and not give a shit.
Okay. Yeah.
It's I don't, and it's funny because I test it myself. So you only have so much time to train, right?
Yeah.
So I used to do at least 3 days a week in a Versa climber. I had a Versa climber in my basement, right? And then I got into yoga. Well, I couldn't fit everything in. Yeah. So I had to do 2 days of strength training at least, and 2 or 3 days. I'm doing 2 or 3 days of yoga. So I was out at the BOSU Summit when BOSU was a sponsor of mine in 2013, and I'm with all the, the higher ups. I mean, we're talking people that I've read about, Douglas Brooks and people, you name it, Peter Twist, people like that. And there's like 60 trainers from around the world, and we're taking classes. We're taking these workshops, and they're basically trying to bury us. And it's funny because yoga kept me in enough shape, because I'm sitting there going, okay, well, it's now or never. I'm either gonna die doing this or I'm not, and I didn't. And I got up every morning for 4 days. I got up every morning for 4 days and did yoga before I went.
So it helped your body cope with the demands of those workouts?
Yeah, it's not just physical, it's mental too.
Mental. Okay, excellent. And what would you recommend would be a good balance between your strength training and your movement, or your yoga? What would be a good kind of weekly balance if there is such a thing?
I like to see people train like 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
2 days of yoga, 2 or 3 days of strength training, maybe another day of cardio or something like that. It's all based on the person. Just do something.
Okay.
Just do something. That's what I like to see.
Yeah. And we'll go into how did you get into strength and conditioning? How did you get into the fitness industry?
You would go there. So that's an interesting story. So I've got a book on the market, Always Pick Last, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So I was the kid that sucked at every sport. The only thing I could play was actually softball because the ball was big enough. But forget about basketball, football, baseball. I sucked at everything, and I couldn't fight my way out of a wet paper bag.
Okay.
So I ended up having a life-changing event. At age 12, my father died at 48 of liver failure.
Okay.
And he was only 48. So the the bullying got worse. And that went on for about a year. And then a close uncle talked me into taking karate. I got involved in karate, and it actually saved my life. And the funny part was, one of the things I learned in karate, it was okay to ask for help.
Okay.
So I started talking to the guys that looked like Big Jim and G.I. Joe that were in their 20s, that were using the universal machine inside the dojo to work out. And I'm like, hey, can you guys teach me how to lift weights? So at 14, I started lifting weights. So love number one was martial arts. Love number two was strength training. So when I go out and do lectures at schools, I keep telling kids, I said, look, I got lucky, because what ended up happening is I got into martial arts, then I got into strength training, then I got into bodybuilding. Then they opened the first Gold's Gym in Massachusetts, owned by Joe Grossi. And I got friendly with Joe, who was Mr. USA, who taught me bodybuilding. And then at 21, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And when I went to college at 18, I was taking computer programming and I was flunking out. Excuse me. After about a year and a half of that, I started taking science courses because I was better at science. I started doing better. Okay. I met somebody 6 years older than me who ended up being my training partner, this guy, Al Jackson. And we literally built our schedules around each other. So we started taking anatomy and physiology. We were going to go to University of Lowell to the physical therapy department, but they wanted us to kiss off 60 credits, start from square one.
Yeah.
And we went to hell with that. So we applied to UMass Boston to the nursing program. Now, my grades weren't good enough for the nursing program, so I applied to the physical education program.
Okay.
And what ended up happening is a friend of mine from a restaurant I worked at had gone to UMass Boston before. And you know how when you're new to a school and you're in between, you have to pick your classes you don't know?
Yes, yeah.
So I had the booklet, and she's helping me pick the classes. And she's like, you got to take this class, Exercise Physiology 101 with Dr. David Thomas. I went, okay. So I had some nursing classes, and I had my physical education stuff, right? Little did I know that Exercise Physiology 101 was a junior level class.
Okay.
My first week in the class, I changed my major. I changed my major and changed my advisor, Dave Thomas, Dr. Dave Thomas. Well, that's another story a little bit. So the book, I can still quote chapters from the Cradle, Catch and Catch, the 3rd edition, Exercise Physiology. I couldn't get enough of it. I literally changed everything over. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I started learning and applying, and back then, I was probably 21, 22. So when I was going to the gym, I started experimenting with high reps, and people thought I was nuts. Doing 20, 30, 40, 50 reps, and people thought I was crazy. People just thought I was completely out of my gourd. And then I could do great on tests. I could ace tests. So I had a mid-level A, but we had these lab reports we had to do. So you can get from 1 to 10 on a lab report. I kept getting 7s. So I said to Dave, I said, why am I getting 7s on my lab reports? He goes, you're writing. He's like, you need to work in your writing. He goes, that's not my job to help you.
Okay.
So I said to him, I go, you know what? You're going to be my advisor from now on. So I started acing my lab reports. The funny story about the whole thing is I had a mid-level A, no problem. Exercise physiology, right? I was so into it. Because we used to have to take blood pressures and stuff and test each other in class. My stethoscope was hanging from my rearview mirror in my car.
Okay.
That's how into it I was. So we had a research paper due, right? Now, I'm not the best writer. And I couldn't type for beans. So what do? You write it out, and then you get your girlfriend to type it, right?
Right.
So I turned in a piece of shit research paper. I got a 50 on it, and I went. I had this mid-level A, went down to a C+, and I went to Dave. I go, Dr. Thomas, I said, how did I get this? He's like, and then he said to me, and he crushed me. He said to me, maybe this isn't for you. I remember driving home from school, looking up at the sky with tears in my eyes, crying to God, going, I thought this, how you think this is what you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
What I'm supposed to do. And then something, and this happens every once in a while, something snapped at me. And I went, screw him. I said, I'm sticking it out. I went back and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be in your face for the next 3 years and you're not going to get rid of me. Fine. I get a C+, fine, but I'm going nowhere. And then I did my internship with one of the first personal trainers around.
Okay.
And I did that for about 1.5 years, and then I broke off on my own and started my own company. So for people listening out there, for kids, I took a hobby, turned it into a lifestyle, and turned it into a career.
And your journey through, obviously, through the education system, I think a lot of people feel when they go to school, a lot of people don't feel like a connection to what they're being taught, and often not they, as you're saying, they flunk out or they leave without much qualifications. And maybe later on they find something that kind of clicks with them. So basically, for you, once you got into connected with what you loved and enjoyed, that you find it easier. You find that you were able to obviously get to a bit more. Is that correct?
Yeah. Once I got into something that, the human body fascinates me. I could study exercise physiology my entire life. And then when you start working with clients, what I fell in love with was working with clients, because what happens is you make an impact in somebody's life.
Yeah.
You're changing somebody for the better, right? So that was when I did my internship with that trainer. That's the first thing I learned. I'm like, oh, wait a second here. You're making a difference. Yeah. Everybody wants to make a difference.
Yeah. And talk about difference. You as we started with a few minutes ago, you mentioned you wrote a book, Always Picked Last. What was when you wrote that book? It was obviously about your experience being bullied, and you wrote obviously trying to help people. What was the kind of impact you were aiming for, obviously, with that, or if you could give us a kind of like the essence of that book, Always Picked Last?
The idea behind Always Picked Last is so no kid thinks that they're worthless. That nothing. I have to say, and I'm not trying to sound, what's the word? Like I've had it rough, but nothing's come easy.
Yeah.
Nothing's come easy. So when I wanted to write the book back in 2011, my oldest client, who was like 86, they gave me $4,000. He gave me $4,000 to go to a ghostwriter.
Okay.
Because I kept talking about it. He's like, well, my son and I are going to give you the money. So I went to this ghostwriter. I had already written kind of a chapter. All she did was take notes. So for $4,000, that's all she did, was take notes. So the book kind of went nowhere after a year. And then I ran into a new fulfillment company that was handling my DVDs. And the guy said to me, the owner said, anything else you need? I said, I could use a ghostwriter. He's like, I got somebody for you. So Kit Birmingham, I tried reaching her for about 3 weeks, couldn't get her on the phone. Then when I finally got her on the phone, she had no time. She heard my passion for this. And this was back in 2012, before anybody was talking about bullying and all the anti-bullying laws. She heard my passion for this. And she said to me, she's like, what do you want to do with this book? I said, make an impact. I go, if we change one kid's life because they read that book, then I said, then I've done it. Then it's worth it. I said, if we end up on Oprah and the book makes millions of dollars, I said, that's even better.
Yeah.
So she actually ghost wrote, basically what she did with the book reads like a movie. She interviewed me every Monday night for about 6 months.
Okay.
That's how we wrote the book. Because she says, I want to be in the movie, and I want you to come out of the movie and tell me what's going on. So that's how the book reads like a movie. You know, the book even got made into a play with autistic kids. You know, all the money went to autism. Back about 3 years ago. Was it 3 years ago? Yeah, 3 years ago. So the idea behind the book, there's even an anti-bullying program in the book. The idea behind the book is so a kid knows they're not worthless. You know, if they read my story and they go, well, he did it, I can do it.
Yeah, excellent. Going obviously, because while we're on this subject of obviously bullying, and I know it kind of can lead into children having mental health issues, even adults. As you know, mental health has really become a major thing globally. Here in Belfast, it's massive, and I think I know the health services are struggling. You recently had to deal with your own mental health illness. Could you tell us a bit more about that and what happened?
Sure. Well, unfortunately, I got divorced.
Okay.
And that was a big change because I was with the same person for almost 30 years. And it's been about 2 years right now. So that's been a very big change. And what had happened was I met somebody else, thought they were it, and realized they weren't it. Yeah. So that was kind of like the start. And then my kids had a couple issues, and then one of the things my ex-wife, unfortunately, it didn't take long, but she made it expensive. So it ended up costing a lot of money. And the one thing that I didn't really realize is since 1990, I've owned a house. So I've gone from one house to another house to another house. Yeah. So going from 3,000 square feet to 1,100 square feet, and the kids going from their separate bedrooms to sharing a bedroom was a huge change. That was another huge change that I didn't expect. So the past 2 years was a perfect storm, and it basically slipped me into a deep depression. You know, I lost a couple of key clients. Things were just completely different than what I was used to, and I was in a hole. I was in a dark place. I was in such a dark place. I tried to off myself. Believe it or not, you know, that's how dark of a place I was in. And I made the classic mistake, or a classic mistake. I isolated myself. And I'm not trying to be egotistical, I've got plenty of friends. Yeah. I didn't reach out to anybody.
Why was that? Why did you feel?
I don't know. You start feeling worthless. You know what I mean? You just start feeling useless. You start feeling like you have nothing. You start feeling empty. You know. Yeah. You know, work slows down. Uh-oh, something's wrong. You know, I'm so used to going 100 million miles an hour. You slow down. You're like, why am I slow? You know, what did I do? You know, and you'll think, what did you do wrong? But in essence, you didn't do anything wrong. You know, and me being a mostly positive person, all this negativity, I'm like, what's wrong with me? I was blaming myself for the way I was feeling.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't find, thank God I've got a good therapist who committed me. And one thing I learned about mental illness, it's an illness. It's chemical. Because I've tried the pills, I've tried the therapy, didn't work. The only thing that, knock on wood, that's worked for me so far is something called ECT therapy.
And can you explain a bit more about that, just for anyone who maybe hasn't heard that before? Or
It's kind of a big commitment. I think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest gave it a bad rap. You basically getting shocked. You know,
it's electrodes, isn't it?
Electrodes, yeah. They knock you out and they basically give you a mild seizure. But the cure rate is like something like 90%.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
So, I heard about it at McLean. I was at one of the best hospitals. I spent Christmas in the hospital. I was at one of the best mental hospitals who've got tons of research. I heard about it there. I'm like, I'll give it a shot. I remember the first time I was going to give it a shot, I almost didn't do it. And I'm like, let's just do it. And then after about 3 times, I started feeling better. They say after 6. I'm at the point now that I'm at maintenance. The challenge with ECT is, it's like surgery. You can't, after midnight, you can't eat, right? I mean, I still work in the morning, and basically you got to have somebody drive you there and then pick you up. They got to sign you out. So it's a commitment, it's a big commitment. So it worked. It's working. Knock on wood, it continues to work. I'm the poster child for it, because it was one of the few things that turned me around.
Yeah. And how are you now? How do you manage? Because I'm sure there's days where you feel that kind of darkness creeping back in. How do you manage your mental health, your mind, basically, on a daily basis?
Well, it's interesting you say that, John. Is it John or Jonathan?
Jonathan's grand, or John's grand sees it. It's grand. So
it's interesting because there's a video floating around about me. I know you saw it, talking about a struggle I had, and I talked about this, and it's gotten like over 1,000 hits. So one of the main problems I was running into when I went through this, or was going through the depression, is exercise. Like, I wasn't liking yoga. I wasn't liking exercise. It was like I was having a hard time exercising. It was difficult. I'd be watching the clock, which is something I'll never do. Now I'm back to my old self. It's 4 or 5 days a week. I don't even bother watching the clock. So the way I manage it is, from what I learned at McLean, is, well, one thing is, exercise. Exercise helps, definitely. Breathing. If you start feeling any of that darkness creep back in, you sit there and wonder why. They're really good there too, because they'll interview you. They'll be like, "So, how you feeling?" They'll run through all the questions. All the questions. You feel anything creeping back? There's people that have been on ECT for years, and what they do is they go back every 3 months.
Okay.
For maintenance. So it really depends on the person,
And what if there's somebody watching this now that maybe feels they're in a really dark place, or they're trapped in some way, with how they're mentally feeling, what would be your most important bit of advice you would give to them?
Go get help.
Just speak out. Just ask for help.
Go. If you're in that dark place and you feel like you got no place else to go get the help you need. I should have done it earlier, so don't hesitate. Go get the help you need. Don't worry about, the big problem is there's a stigma, right?
Yeah.
People, you say cancer, oh.
Yeah.
You say depression, nobody wants to talk to you, right? And you know what? That was part of my problem. That's why I was isolating myself. I'm like, I'm a positive person. I should be able to pull myself out of this. What's my problem? And my problem is It wasn't feelings, just feelings. It was chemical.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
And how do you, with obviously you work for yourself, there's obviously a lot more demands, because you're your boss, the buck stops with you. How do you balance managing a business and your recovery? Is it easy, or do you find it a bit difficult to do that?
You basically, business is recovery to me. Starting projects like, one of the things, I hadn't done a certification in about a year, so I've already got 4 booked, live certifications. One of the things I wanted to do is bring my certification online, because the problem is I can't be everywhere, number one. Number two, what if people can't make it?
Yeah.
Have the ability. So I was lucky that I got connected with Matt Chapman, Mitmaster, who actually showed me how to put it online. And, and I'm glad that we're going to be launching it, and people are actually looking forward to it. I've got the content. The content isn't the issue. It was the platform I needed.
Yeah.
So balancing recovery is basically, just staying in tune with yourself. What had happened was things happened so fast, kind of in the divorce, and then so fast getting involved with that other person, and then stuff went on with the kids, and it was things were moving so fast, and I didn't have time to catch up. By the time I caught up, it was too late. Yeah, now it's kind of like, you slow down a little bit, you kind of take a breath and go, okay, what about this? What about that?
And what obviously you're doing that. What does your own training look like? Like obviously you said you lost an interest, obviously with what you were doing. Now you're obviously on the mend. What does your own training look like at the moment, basically?
My own training is a minimum of 4 days a week, sometimes 5. So I'm in hot yoga at least twice, and then I'm doing my own circuit training at least 2 to 3 times a week. So right now, when I was in the hospital, I got into running and biking, and then I was doing that for a while, and then I had to do some filming, and I had to do some filming for Train Magazine. They're doing a 21-day challenge, so I'm running May because I write for them.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the May challenge. So I did this MMA 5-round strength training routine, which was just crazy. Yeah. And I hadn't done something like that in a while. Filmed it all, the whole bit, and I went, you know what? This felt pretty good. I think I'll keep doing this. So I've been doing that. So I'm basically doing gas in the tank now. Instead of doing that day, I did 5 rounds, but now I'm sticking to just 3 rounds. But still, 3 rounds is still going to take you. 3 rounds takes you a good 30 minutes.
And do you have like a daily routine? Do you have a routine that helps you set up for the day or helps finish the day?
It's funny that you say that. One of the things that I do is, I'm a freak about it, is because my mother was, I always eat breakfast. It's part of, I would rather skip a different meal than breakfast. I just can't get, I'm not a coffee drinker, not a tea drinker. It's got to be breakfast. The other thing I started is, because, my father drank, I started going to Al-Anon, and one of the things I learned in Al-Anon, which is the other side of alcoholism, is some woman taught me to do a gratuity journal. So I try to remember every day to write down 5 thank yous for something for the day before.
Okay.
Try to find 5 things that you're thankful for. Anything. Is it just getting up out of bed? Is it whatever it is? You know, just that. That's kind of been a routine of mine for years.
Okay, excellent. And what do you call it? I think when we were planning to do this interview, you also mentioned I think you do meditation or.
You know, I've been bad with it lately. You know, because the Waking Up app. Sam, what's his name? Forget his name.
Sam Harris.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was good with it for a while, and then I got to get back on it. Maybe after this, I'll get back on it.
Right. That's the thing I could do with more myself. We've talked about gas the tank. You mentioned you're doing an article in May, and people might have heard gas the tank. This all relates to your, I think, what's helped put you across the world, which was the basement tapes. Can you explain what the basement tapes are, what gas in the tank is, and
Sure.
how did the whole basement tapes start?
That's an interesting question, Jonathan. So if we jump back in history, this was late 2007 where we got the concept of the basement tapes. So since I rebuilt Kenny on phase 1 strength hypertrophy, phase 2 explosive power, phase 3 gas in the tank being sports specific. So everything looks very sports specific. It looks like a fight. Literally looks like a fight. And plus it's something that I came up with called a 2.12 to 1 work ratio. Instead of a 2 to 1 work ratio, it's a 2.12. And the way I came up with the formula is it's 9 stations for 35 seconds instead of 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off. And the way I came up with it is I read an article on sprinters strengthening their toes to give them a 2% edge. And I went, 2%? I said, 2% in a fight can be different. I mean, how many people have seen a fight go the other way the last 30 seconds?
Yeah.
So I started experimenting with that. So it works. And my marketing manager, Ron Weinberg said to me back in 2007, he's like, why don't you do something called the basement tapes? Kind of raw, real, doesn't have to be fancy, you and Kenny. We had an investor. We were all set to go. We had 25 grand. We're going to do 3 videos, Kenny and I. And if you remember the market back in November, right around Thanksgiving, it crashed.
Yeah, the credit crunch. Yeah,
it crunched. We lost our investor. So I went to when I was married, I went to my wife back then. And you know how you just have to do something?
Yeah.
I had to do it. It was in me. I had to do it. I said, I got to do this. Let me take some money out of the house. I only need 10 grand. So I did. She said, okay. Because I was really good at reinventing myself. Still am. She said, okay. So I took 10 grand out to do 3 DVDs. Now, that's 2007. Nowadays, that would be a shitload of money.
Yeah.
But 10 grand was nothing to do workout DVDs. My budget was so tight. I just got an email. My budget was so tight that I didn't even have a menu. So my
DVD menu?
I didn't have a DVD. I couldn't put a DVD menu in. So I got them 10 grand wrapped, packaged, shipped, and edited and filmed. Nobody did it for that. I was getting them for 1,000 each. I was getting them for $1.50 from a friend of mine in Canada. Nobody could do that. My fulfillment company, the third bay in my garage. So when we launched, and the funny thing was, we launched the videos on my little website in April, right around the time of Kenny's fight against Joe Lozon. We made the money back in a month.
Excellent.
Just like I got home from the fight and I'm like stuffing envelopes, literally stuffing envelopes. And then, I got really good at, then we did grappling specific strength. No, excuse me. We did partner drills because Bosu wanted some MMA. I forget. I think, yeah, Bosu wanted some drills with two fighters, or something like that. So I filmed that. And then there was grappling specific strength. Then it was MMA body weight, and that's how it grew. And I got really good at knowing my budget and knowing, hey, it's only going to cost me X to film this, and then my editing guy to edit it, was like, it's only going to cost him X to edit it. So it worked,
Excellent.
Now nobody wants DVDs. So that's why nobody wants DVDs anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to watch on their phone or their tablet or the computer. So that's why I was dying to put them online, to put them up on on a source, on a platform.
And your online certification, just for anyone who's watching, you after those basement tapes, you started doing like a kind of a seminar based certification. Can you explain a bit what your certification is and what ways it's going to work on the online when it gets launched on the 20th of February?
Run that by me one more time.
Oh, sorry. Can you explain a bit about the certification program that you run, and can you talk a bit more about what's going to look like when you get it online on the new website?
Okay, sure. So, the one thing that I wanted to make sure that we did is, and people will know this when it comes out in a couple, 6 days?
14. Yeah, 6 days. 6 days. Yeah.
6 days. I got to move my butt. If they buy the online certification, they can come to a live certification.
Okay.
Free. Okay.
Excellent. So that's good.
Yeah. Well, the big issue I would have is people would be like, oh, I was gutted that I couldn't come to your certification. And it's like, well, now you can take it.
Yeah.
All the materials there. So basically, they get eight videos, all the content that we go through, and then they get a 60-page manual, and they go through the content. And then what ends up happening is, to get certified, I send them a test, and then they got to film themselves doing some of the protocols.
Okay, and this is the same. Basically, this is the same system that you developed to get Kenny Florian fighting ready.
This is the same system I use on all 15 fighters. This is the same system I've used for NFL players like Rasay Dallin. This is the same system I've used for NBA players like Big Baby Glenn Davis. Same system I've used at some of the biggest fitness shows, with 200 people in the room. It's the same system.
Yeah, brilliant. And obviously, your business has moved along. You've been in business for quite a while.
28 years.
28 years. In those 20 years, what if there's somebody watching this now, maybe thinking I would like to start my own business or whatever, what advice would you give them?
Do something that you love, and you've got to have perseverance. Because if you don't have perseverance, you're not going to survive. It's the toughest job you'll ever love. It's your business. Burma Kearns is mine. Beachbody transformation is mine. My new 8-week online transformation program. That's mine. I created that. When we talk about basement tapes are mine, my creation, right?
Yeah.
That's all my gas in a tank. Anybody says anything about gas in a tank, mine.
Yeah.
I created it. So if you don't love it, if you don't absolutely love it, do I like getting up at 3:30 in the morning some days to train clients? No. Do I like planes sometimes? Flying here and there and everywhere? No, I don't like flying here and everywhere. But you know what? You do it. What I do like doing is I like presenting. I like educating. I like I like training people. I like people getting something out of it, you know. So
I'm sorry, getting that satisfaction of seeing somebody improve their health, improve their well-being.
you're doing something for some. You're making a difference, right? You're making a difference. Like, you know, when that video came out, me talking about my struggle, I heard from more people. That's how I knew I have a lot of friends. I heard from more people in a week than I'm like. I mean, I was hearing from people from high school.
Right. Okay.
You know, so and people would say that, like, Kevin, this is going to make an impact on somebody. I'm like, well, if that's the case, you know, if I'm going to make an impact on somebody, fine.
No, I think when I think the important thing, again, I know we're kind of maybe going back a wee bit, but I think the important thing is when someone like yourself puts their hand up and says, actually, I suffer mental health illness or mental illness. I think that opens the doors for people to kind of go, oh, I'm not alone, or if that individual has had to deal with that, it kind of makes it maybe, I don't know if it's the right thing to say, it makes it maybe easier for them then obviously to deal with it themselves. Maybe hopefully, as you said, ask for help or go out and get help.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't think I'm some Joe celebrity, but you know, I was amazed at how many people reached out to me. So and me releasing that video, people were like, "This is going to help somebody." I did hear I heard from you know, a guy I haven't heard from in probably 4 years. His son's going through it, you know.
Okay, yeah.
And I haven't heard from him since, but you know, he's like, can we talk to you? I'm like, fine. And I've had people do the same thing to me. People say, Ken Baum, who wrote The Mental Edge, you know, I just talked to him about reviewing my course. He's like, absolutely, I'll review your course and I'll give you a testimonial. He goes, and you know what? He said, I'm a little insulted. He said, you went through a rough patch. I consider you a friend. Reach out next time. Reach out to me. I mean, he's had to rebuild himself. He's in his 60s now, I think. He's had to rebuild himself a couple times. He's lost it all.
Okay, yeah.
So it's, you know what, it is possible. It is, you know, it is possible to start over. You know, sometimes you don't have a choice anyway.
Yeah, you have to keep moving forward.
You have to keep. Well, you know, it's like Dr. Wayne Dyer said. If you're in a valley, you should be celebrating because the hill's coming, and you got to move forward. And if you're at the top of the hill, don't celebrate too long because the valley's coming. And he goes, and that is just the way it is.
Yeah. With your in-depth experience and obviously the things you recently went through, what would be some of your biggest life lessons you've learned over the past few years?
Speak your piece. Don't hold your tongue. You know, you got something to say it tactfully, but say it. You know, plan ahead. You know, definitely plan ahead. You know, look forward. Definitely look forward. You know,
like setting goals, set like a vision for where you want to be.
Goals would be nice, a vision, or just an intention. Have an intention. And, you know, read the writing on the wall. You know, read the writing on the wall. Definitely read the writing on the wall. And your health is first.
Yeah.
Your health is mental health and physical health is first before money. You know?
It kind of goes back to what you said at the very start of the interview about building that foundation for the house.
Yeah.
So your health is your foundation you can move on from.
Exactly. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Basically, I know you're starting the online certification. That launches next week on the 20th. And if you could just quickly talk about some of the other things. I know you do, isn't it right? You have a cookbook or like a recipe book online, and then you have the Beats Body Ready program. Could you talk
So
about that?
we've got something called, it's an 8-week transformation program. It's called Beach Bod Transformation. It's 8 weeks. It's online. It's basically you get online programming and a nutrition course. You know, that's it. I don't have a recipe book online.
Oh, okay.
There's video of me in what's called Coach's Kitchen. That's up on a couple videos.
Excellent.
You know, I've gone live on Facebook and filmed myself cooking because people have asked me to.
Right. Excellent. Would you ever consider writing a cookbook or a recipe book at all?
Yeah, I might consider that.
Okay.
I know on basement tape number 6, bodyweight MMA bodyweight conditioning, the whole bonus section, last half hour is me cooking.
Right. Excellent.
That I know for a fact.
Kevin, just before we wrap up, how do people, if they want to contact you or if they want to sign up to any of the courses or the online certification, where can they reach you? Where can they contact you?
They can easily go to burnwithkearns.com. Actually, you can give them my email, burnwithkearns@me.com.
Okay, I'll include links and I'll post this video up. I'll include links into that. So
include links, and then Beach Bod Transformation.
Okay.
If they want that, and include Burn with Kearns. The link for the online certification will be on the website within a week.
Excellent. That's great. Kevin, seriously, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Jonathan.
It's really great getting to chat with you. It's been a while since I actually spoke to you. Probably nearly 10 years. I was on one of your earlier certifications. So thanks for coming. Yeah, I was on with we call it two friends, Keith Foster and John. About 10 years ago.
Is it 10 years ago?
Yeah, it was down in Dublin. So so it's actually good to.
That was the first one I did here.
I was over in you flew over to Dublin. I think you came over with a guy called Scott. So it was really good. So again, if anyone's watching this, I do highly recommend that they check out your online certification because it's a really good source material for anyone who's wanting to improve their coaching or strength and conditioning knowledge.
Well, it's all around material that can be used for anybody.
Yeah. No, definitely. So thank you very much, Kevin, and also I wish you all the best for the new course and continued health, and hope your recovery continues to improve.
I hope anybody else is going through that, gets the right help. And if anybody else is there, if anybody's listening out there, bring me back to Belfast, will you? Bring me back to Belfast for a certification. Yeah,
no, definitely be good to have you. Good to have you here in Belfast. We'll even maybe do a second episode at some stage.
Exactly. I'm going to Scotland at Brian Fernie's the end of August.
Okay, that's this year, isn't it?
Yes, in Livingston.
Livingston. Okay, excellent.
It's on the website.
No worries. So, Kevin, thank you, and
thank you, Jonathan.
Really appreciate that for coming on today.
All right, I'll look forward to hearing this.